What if I told you that 82% of trucks never make it past 150,000 miles? Yet mine blasted past 500,000 without a rebuild. And no, it wasn't luck. The real killers of modern engines aren't age or mileage, but the hidden secrets the auto industry hope you never discover. Today, we're tearing down that wall of silence. I'm revealing 17 brutally honest, data-backed, mechanic-approved longevity hacks that can push your truck past 700,000 miles running smooth, strong, and far more reliably than the manufacturers ever intended. And whatever you do, don't miss habit number 5, because it's the one that prevents the most expensive failure in your entire truck. Let's dive in. Number 17, the 3,000-mile oil rule. That 10,000-mile change interval printed in your owner's manual, most guys follow it like gospel. Here is the catch. Those numbers were written for a perfect world and for marketing, not for the road you actually drive on. An engine does not die of old age. Or Canada, a lighter winter weight like 0W20 gets moving fast on a freezing start, so the metal is not running dry. The manual hands you the spec, your weather, your right foot, and the miles on the motor hand you the interval. Run a quality synthetic on a short change cycle, and nothing guards better against a stretched timing chain, scored bearings, and sludge. And do not be the guy who reuses a filter. New oil, new filter, every single time, because that filter is catching the grit. You do not want your fresh oil hauling around. That is one down. The next one guards a part that costs about double to fix. Number 16, the gearbox lifesaver. Nobody gives the transmission ways there is to trash your fuel system without ever seeing it happen. Force fuel up the filler neck past the shutoff, and the overflow drowns your charcoal canister, a part built to trap vapor and nothing else. Soak it once, and it starts crumbling on the inside, washing little flecks of charcoal down into the lines and valves. Now, you have a rough idle, a hard start, a gas smell riding in the cab, a check engine light, and a bill that lands anywhere from $400 to $1,200. That nozzle shuts off on purpose. It is holding the pressure where it belongs and guarding the vapor recovery system, and the second you override it, you swamp both at once. The EPA flat out warns that topping off spikes those vapor failures, worst of all in the heat when the fuel swells. And here is the part that stings. The automaker will not put a nickel toward it, because to them it is driver error, plain and simple. So the rule is easy. First click you hear, you are done. Let it breathe. Keep those emissions parts dry, and you walk right past one of the most maddening repairs on the whole truck. Do that and roll on, because the next habit exposes a hidden stress point that is quietly ripping at your drivetrain every mile you drive. Number 14, the engine mount death test. An engine that shakes like it wants to climb out of the truck is trying to tell you something. Tired motor mounts are behind a shocking amount of vibration, rough idle, and even early transmission wear, and the big repair networks lay close to 20% of driveline stress failures right on them. Almost nobody checks them until something finally snaps. Catch a bad mount for $150, and you dodge a $1,000 wreck down the road. Because once that shaking starts traveling, it takes out axles, splits hoses, cracks the exhaust flex pipe, and knocks the whole transmission out of line. Here's a test you can run right in your own driveway. First, fire it up and plant your foot hard on the brake. Second, ease it from park into drive. Third, watch it and feel what it does. A hard lunge forward, a cab that shakes rough, or a wheel that shudders more than normal all point to worn mounts. Fourth, run it again, dropping into reverse. Big movement in either direction is your warning flag. Bad mounts do a whole lot worse than rattle you around. They pull the drivetrain crooked, stretch the hoses, crack that flex pipe, and hammer the transmission on every shift. Swap them early and the smoothness comes back, the transmission stays protected, and a stack of downstream bills never shows up. Tuck that away, because the next habit goes after a cold morning mistake that chips at your engine every single day. Number 13, the smart warm-up. For years, the gospel has been to fire up a cold engine and let it idle 5, even 10 minutes before you pull out. Sounds right. Let it sit there and come up to temperature nice and slow. Trouble is, your truck is not a carbureted rig from the 1980s, and a long cold idle does more harm than the cold ever would. Idling cold rinses raw fuel down the cylinder walls, waters down your oil, and speeds the wear right along. The Department of Energy pinned it down. A drawn-out idle can raise engine wear by as much as 2/3, and that is on top of all the gas you burn going nowhere. The better play: give it 20 to 30 seconds after startup, then pull out and drive it gentle. That short window brings the oil pressure up and gets it everywhere it needs to be, without flooding the cylinders or cooking the catalytic converter before it's time. More than one automaker's own testing shows an engine reaches temperature 40% quicker, rolling easy than it does sitting still, and that means less friction, a cleaner burn, and more years on the clock. Do it this way, and you get fewer cold morning knocks, smoother early shifts, and less fuel gone in the dead of winter. Kick the old habit. Warm it quick, then roll. Thanks for hanging with me this far. It tells me you actually care about how long that truck of yours lasts. If you want more high-mile secrets that really do work, do me a favor and hit like and subscribe. The habits coming up are even stronger than the ones behind us. Number 12, the coolant truth check. An overheat is hardly ever bad luck. It is almost always a cooling system that has been quietly rotting for months. Plenty of guys trust that 100,000-mile coolant sticker, but out on the road it plays out different. Coolant goes acidic over time, gives up the additives that hold corrosion back, and starts chewing your aluminum apart from the inside. Researchers at the International Journal of Automotive Engineering found neglected coolant pushes the odds of a blown head gasket up close to 40%, and that is long before a wisp of steam ever curls out from under the hood. One quick drain test settles it. Crack the petcock or pull the lower radiator hose and catch a little in a cup. Fresh coolant runs bright and clear. If it comes out brown, rusty, gritty, or thick, you are already past due for a flush. And while you are down there, hunt for leaks. Scan the radiator, the water pump, and the clamps for any crusty green, pink, or orange film. A leak caught early costs you pennies. A leak left alone can warp a head in the time it takes to boil over. Change the coolant every 30,000 to 50,000 miles and let the manual say whatever it wants. Getting out ahead of an overheat is not really maintenance. It is insurance. And the next habit looks out for another system, guys. Forget clean about until it quits on them at the worst moment there is. Number 11. The fuel that fights back. Cheap gas is one of the fastest roads there is to an old engine before its time. You will not see the harm the day you pump it, but your injectors, your intake valves, and your combustion chambers feel every drop of that low detergent fuel. A modern engine, and a direct injection engine most of all, sprays fuel at pressures up to 2,000 pounds per square inch, and even a speck of deposit throws the spray pattern off. The AAA fuel quality study found engines run on non-top-tier gas built up 19 times more carbon in just 4,000 miles. That carbon robs your power, drinks your fuel, and shortens the life of parts you never want to be paying for. The fix is cheap as it gets. Run top-tier certified gas whenever you can, and push a good injector cleaner through it every 3,000 to 4,000 miles. Direct injection trucks like the EcoBoost F-150, the Silverado, the Ram, and the Tundra all idle smoother and answer the pedal additive rebuilds the spray pattern, knocks the carbon back, and keeps the combustion chamber cooler. Of that in your fuel system keeps its edge, because the next habit is all about a hidden part that will shake the entire truck once it starts to fail. Number 10. The Shift Smart Ritual. Your transmission is one of the most expensive things bolted into that truck, and also one of the simplest to wreck without ever meaning to. Every hard shift, every quick slam into reverse, every time you jam it into park while the truck is still creeping, you drive a shock load straight through the gears. Do it long enough, and the synchros wear, the clutch packs strain, and the gear teeth give up. In fact, AAMCO lays better than 40% of early transmission failures right at the feet of sloppy shifting, even on trucks that barely have miles on them. The ritual could not be simpler. Full stop before you ever change direction. A half-second pause before you drop it in reverse. And never ever shove it into park while the wheels are still rolling. That one little beat spares the parking pawl, the clutch pistons, and the gear sets from grinding on each other under a load. A Toyota Tacoma or a Tundra sails past 300,000 miles all the time, and a big piece of why is owners who baby the shifter instead of stabbing it. Handle that gearbox like it is made of glass, because the next habit has nothing to do with shifting. It is about how you come to a stop, and doing that right saves your brakes, your gas, and a fat pile of money. Number 9. The Carbon Clean Revival. Carbon buildup might be the most misread engine killer of them all, and it hits a direct injection engine the hardest. A direct injection motor shoots the fuel straight into the cylinder, so the intake valves miss out on the gasoline bath the old engines got with every stroke. Skip that wash long enough, and a hard carbon crust cakes onto the valves, the intake runners, and the piston tops, strangling airflow, kicking off misfires, and quietly bleeding your mileage. The SAE measured it. A direct injection engine can shed up to 10% of its power and its efficiency by just 50,000 miles, from carbon and nothing else. The fix is not fancy. Every 40,000 to 60,000 miles, get a real carbon cleaning done, walnut blasting, a chemical soak, or a trusted induction service, and the airflow comes right back with it. Picture it like clearing out the engine's lungs. The EcoBoost F-150, the Turbo Silverados and Rams, and just about any boosted truck get the biggest payoff here. And if the idle feels rough, the throttle feels lazy, or the mileage drops off for no reason at all, that is carbon knocking on the door already. Keep the valves clean and the motor pulls air like the day it was born. Because the next habit guards something you lean on every single time you park, and most guys do it dead wrong. Number 8. The parking power protector. Most guys figure the shifter does all the work when they throw it into park, but that one lazy habit is quietly destroying a little transmission piece called the parking pawl. It is a small metal lock that carries the whole weight of the truck when you park it on a hill, and when it lets go, you are staring at a repair that runs $900 to $1,500. Mechanics see it constant on rigs that spent years getting dropped into park with nobody ever touching the handbrake. Here is the smarter way. Set the handbrake first. Let the truck settle back onto it, and then move the shifter into park. Now the weight is riding on the brake where it belongs, instead of beating on the transmission. The transmission specialists figure this one move cuts pawl wear by as much as 70%, and it matters even more on the older Silverados, F-150s, and Tacomas that haul heavy drivetrain loads. Best part? The whole thing takes 3 seconds and works on everything. An automatic, a CVT, even an electric truck with a real parking lock. Make it a habit like buckling up, not an afterthought, because that 3-second move heads off thousands in repairs and keeps the transmission alive well past 200,000 miles. I appreciate you riding with me this deep into the list. Most folks never pick up a single one of these lifespan tricks. If it is doing you some good so far, tap like and subscribe. There are even more proven habits ahead that keep a truck alive and pulling long past what anybody figured it would. Number 7. Power line protection. Your truck's whole electrical system is riding on a small handful of cables, and those cables might be the most ignored things under the hood. Let a battery terminal go weak or a ground strap corrode, and you get a lot more than a slow crank. You get a parade of gremlins that mimic failed sensors, computer hiccups, even phantom transmission trouble. ASE techs will tell you close to 30% of the mystery electrical faults they chase come down to a bad ground, not a bad part. Which means guys are bolting on $200 sensors and $600 alternators when a $12 cleanup on one cable would have fixed the whole thing. And it cost you nothing but a few minutes. Get under the hood, look the terminals over for that chalky white crust, a loose clamp, or a frayed ground strap where it bolts to the frame or the block. Scrub them with a wire brush, torque them back down, and wipe on a dab of dielectric grease to keep the corrosion from coming back. Make that part of every oil change, and your voltage stays rock steady, your alternator lasts longer, and the cold mornings quit fighting you. And the payoff, a clean ground, can buy you years on the alternator and the starter and spare you a repair that usually runs $300 to $900. Get that foundation solid, because the next habit reboots a system your truck leans on harder than you would ever guess. Number 6. Throttle reset magic. The throttle body might be the least understood part of the whole engine. Swap a battery, take a jump start, or just rack up years of stop and go and it gets confused. You feel it right off. The pedal goes lazy, the idle wanders, there is a beat of delay when you step on it, or the revs hang up there when you lift your foot. Here is the twist most guys miss. A lot of that is not broken hardware at all. It is the software losing the plot. A modern truck is always learning your throttle habits, your fuel trims, your airflow, and mile after mile that learned data drifts off course. Run a reset and it dumps all those bad lessons and makes the truck relearn the right idle and throttle position from a clean slate. Chevy, Ford, Ram, Toyota, Nissan, near enough every modern nameplate answers to it. Real example, a 2016 F-150 owner had a smoother idle and a sharper throttle the second the reset finished, without a single part changed. The whole thing runs under 2 minutes. Key to the on position, motor off. Floor the gas pedal and hold it for 10 seconds. Shut it back off, let the pedal up. Then start it and let it idle a bit while it relearns. That is all there is to it. And if the truck still drives ragged after that, the next habit comes at the problem from a whole other direction. Number 5. Coast like a pro. This is the one I told you not to miss. Most people roll right up to a red light and stand on the brake pedal, and that habit is quietly killing the brake system long before the pads are anywhere near worn out. The enemy is heat. Stab the brakes at the last second, and the rotors can flash past 500 degrees, and that brings on glazing, warping, and fine heat cracks. Consumer Reports found the late breakers burn through pads 40% quicker, and rotors twice as fast as the folks who simply back off sooner. Coasting is not just polite driving, it is flat-out mechanical magic. Lift off the throttle 5 to 10 seconds before you need to stop, and the engine itself scrubs off the speed while the brakes stay cool and happy. The F-150 PowerBoost Hybrid does exactly this on its own, through regen braking, clawing back as much as 80% of that energy, and it is a big reason those brake parts go so far. Try it tomorrow. Start easing off the gas early as you roll up on traffic, a bend, or a downhill grade. You will feel the truck settle instead of nosedive, and that pedal will stay cooler and firmer under your boot. Bank that one, because the next habit shields your motor from a quiet fuel flow problem nobody ever thinks to check. Number 4. The fuel filter test. The fuel filter is about the smallest part on the whole truck, and it can throttle the entire engine without ever making a peep. Pile on the miles and little specks of rust, dirt, and tank sediment collect in it, until one day it is so plugged, the engine simply cannot pull the fuel it needs under load. That is the truck that stumbles when you get on it, gasps going up a grade, or feels gutless even with the needles sitting on full. In the worst cases, the extra strain overheats the fuel pump, and now you are into a $600 to $1,200 repair. Testing it is dead easy. On a hard pull, say merging onto the interstate, a motor that hesitates, jerks, or acts starved is very likely choking behind a plugged filter. The makers call for a new one every 30,000 to 50,000 miles, but dusty roads or an older tank mean you move that up. A $30 filter swapped on time defends your injectors, your pump, and the whole engine from a bill in the thousands. Keep it clean, because the very next habit watches over a brake system most guys never give a thought. Number 3. The brake fluid flush that saves lives. Of all the fluids in a truck, brake fluid is the one guys forget the most, and it has got one of the biggest jobs of any of them, hauling 2 tons of metal down to a stop the instant your foot hits the pedal. Here is what most guys miss. Brake fluid is hygroscopic, which is just a fancy way of saying it drinks moisture right out of the air day after day. Inside of 2 years, that moisture can climb to 3%, and that alone cuts the boiling point nearly in half. Let it boil on you under hard braking, a long grade or a stretch of heavy stop and go, and the pedal goes soft, the stopping power fades, and you are just along for the ride. The National Highway Institute has found that moisture-soaked brake fluid is a top cause of ABS pump failures, and that pump will set you back more than $1,000. Flush it every 2 to 3 years, and you head off the corrosion, save the ABS, and keep that pedal firm under your foot. Keep it fresh, because the next habit looks after the spark that lights off every bang in the engine. Number 2. The power of a quality plug. A cheap spark plug looks like a bargain, but it quietly drains your power, your mileage, and the life of the engine long before most guys ever catch on. A modern engine fires those plugs thousands of times a minute, and even a small drop in spark throws off the whole burn. In fact, studies show worn or bargain plugs can cut your fuel economy by as much as 30%, set off misfires, and overload the catalytic converter, which is one of the most expensive parts on the whole truck. Real-world case. A 2014 F-150 owner ignored weak plugs for 40,000 miles and ended up with a fried coil pack and a $980 repair that a $60 plug change would have stopped cold. The fix is easy. Stay with a factory-grade or iridium plug and swap them right on the recommended schedule. One rule, plain and simple. A cheap plug costs you more later. A good plug hands you back a smooth idle, a crisp throttle, better mileage, and it saves your catalytic converter from melting down. Stay sharp, because the last habit trains your ears to catch trouble long before your warning lights ever do. Number 1. The quarter tank rule. Here is one most guys never think about. Down at the bottom of that fuel tank is the roughest spot there is for a fuel pump to live. When you run it below a quarter tank on the regular, the pump loses the fuel it counts on to keep itself cool. That is when the heat spikes, the wear takes off, and that little electric motor starts to strain. Industry teardown studies show a pump run in low fuel, over and over runs up to 40 degrees hotter, and that is a big reason they fail 30% faster on high-mile trucks. And once a pump overheats, all the sediment resting down in that tank gets pulled up into the fuel system, plugging injectors and choking your throttle. Keep that tank above a quarter and you dodge the whole mess. It holds the pump temperature steady, keeps the fuel from starving out on a hill, and lets the junk settle where it cannot hurt a thing. It is a habit that costs you nothing and protects a part that runs $600 to $1,200 to replace. Lock that rule in and your truck's odometer just keeps on climbing. And there you have it, folks, the habits that quietly shove an ordinary truck right into the 300,000-mile club and keep it going. If even one of these tips saves your engine, your wallet, or your sanity, do me a favor. Smack that like button, hit subscribe, and leave a comment telling me what the odometer on your truck reads right now. I would love to hear how far yours has made it and which habit you are fixing first. And if you want the whole playbook in one place, I put together a book called The Right Ride that lays out the buying traps, the maintenance shortcuts, and the exact models worth keeping and the ones worth walking away from. And there is a link in the description if you want to check it out. Either way, do not click off just yet. The next one gets into the fatal engine oil mistakes that quietly wreck reliability and cut a truck's life short, and it is packed with the warning